So I watched a David Attenborough uh, piece last night with my family, and it left me pretty pissed off. He was giving what he called his testimony about the changes that he's seen in the world over his lifetime, and I'm not gonna lie, it looked pretty dire. He had uh, ticking numbers for uh, the year, the population, the CO2 uh, emissions, and the percentage of wild spaces left in the world. And it was this doom ticker. He'd show it every once in a while. Snapshot, snapshot, snapshot. Doom, doom, doom. Worse, worse, worse. More people, worse. More CO2, worse. Less wild, worse. Um, and that was easily 75% of the movie was um, chronicling over the course of his life how the wild spaces have been disappearing. And I don't have an argument with that, um, with his, testimony in terms of what he's seen over his life. One of his core arguments, I think, is very interesting. That this is um, very much our planet at this point, our human planet at this point, and that uh, we've gotten to the point as apex predators on this world, and uh, our technology has gotten to the point where really this world for us is about our survival on it, and that by uh, erasing biodiversity through destruction of forests and uh, overfishing and overhunting and reduction of grazing lands for big herbivores, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like we've brought this to the point where he feels that the planet uh, can't sustain our growth any longer, um, and he also um, the last quarter, maybe less of the movie was, uh, his message of hope was that um, the population would peak soon, and that birth rates have already been declining, and that um, renewable energy was going to save us um, by not burning fossil fuels and introducing carbon into the atmosphere. We could shift everything into solar and wind and geothermal. I'm not sure if he named another power source there, but what pissed me off about it is his testimony was basically, um, I got to chronicle all of this amazing stuff early in my life. And as I continued to zoom around on airplanes and uh, hire guides and uh, hire cars and tramp through the wilderness to get my photos, um, every year every time I went around to the same place, it became harder and harder to find the critters than I chronicled in the first place. And that, the numbers of individuals of species was reducing and the number of species was reducing. And um, he emphasized over and over again how fortunate he felt to experience all the things he experienced. And what left me sour was that in the end, what I heard was, we've had a good run. It's time for you plebs to think smaller, have smaller lives, um, and you can't have what I had. Um, he didn't call for it outright, but I heard in it um, a call for something like smart cities. I heard in it a call for uh, more depopulation. I heard in it a lot of blame. And here's where I have a problem with that, is that our lifestyles currently, we have responsibility for a lot of it. Not all of it, but a lot of it. Our forebears have a lot of responsibility for it, and their forebears have a lot of responsibility for it. I think something he called out well in the movie was that Western culture prior to the 1960s wasn't thinking at all about our impact on the planet, and I think it is worth thinking about our impact on the planet, which is why I find his solutions so horrifying, because he's explicitly valuing other life over humans, is the impression I got of that. I think it's a shame to see species disappear and die off. I agree with him. Um, and, prior to 1960, yeah, U.S. culture for sure, European culture for sure, wasn't going to acknowledge that we could have a negative impact on the planet, other than cutting down a tree that someone liked. Our emotional attachment was all that we might have recognized there. But his solutions, the renewable energy thing, like, a few things. First, I don't buy the carbon boogeyman in the way that it was presented in his stuff, and the way a lot of climate scientists have reported that stuff. I think there are good scientists that are working on climate, and the truth of the matter is they come up with results that are kind of ambivalent. They're not hard in one direction or the other. I do believe in the precautionary principle. I think we should not be going out of our way to pollute, etc. But the science isn't there on carbon in the way that it might be for some other things. All indications are that we're actually greening the planet through more carbon dioxide, because the plants have more to eat. It's warmer, it's sunnier, the plants are doing well. Plants love the sun. Plants love CO2. I again, not a fan of pollution. I think a lot of what comes out of a smokestack isn't CO2. It's other heavy particulates that didn't fully combust. It's other exotic chemicals that were formed during a combustion process that involved often petrochemicals. His solutions, though, I'll get there eventually. His solutions had to do with this renewable energy stuff. And one of the biggest lies is that we can do green energy the way that a lot of people are attempting to do it. Solar panels, I'm sorry, they take up real estate. They use exotic metals that need to be mined. They have a shelf life. They're effectively landfill when people are done with them. You might be able to recover some materials, but the panels that interact with the light and make electricity happen, those things aren't super recyclable. They really aren't. They're landfill. These things go to battery systems, and battery systems, depending on how we do it, it's usually something really horrible. Our batteries are usually really horrible. Lead acid used to be the standard. It still is for a lot of cars of the old kind. The new kind of cars are going to lithium ion cells, etc., etc. That lithium has to come from somewhere, and everywhere it comes from, the land is destroyed by these leach fields, by the mining operation itself. Not to mention all the copper mining for all the increased need for electricity associated with a completely electrified grid and completely electrified cars. The copper demand is insane. Wind turbines have a similar copper issue. They're massive. I mean, when you see an aerial photo of a beautiful, majestic hillside, and you see this really sleek windmill on top of the hill catching the wind going over it, you don't get a feeling for the scale of the thing, the scale of what was mined in order to create this tower, the amount of oil required to lubricate the thing, the amount of maintenance that it requires is considerable. Uh, the the big blades, they make them out of lighter material than it, for a good reason, light, strong material. It tends to be fiberglass or something like it. That's not recyclable. That's landfill when it's done. That's not repairable. You wouldn't want one of these massive blades that's the length of several trucks. You don't want that thing failing up there. So they have to take them down and they have to throw them out. Wind isn't it. Geothermal was the other one. Damming for hydroelectricity. There's a push-pull on dams, and I get why. A lot of people don't like dams. They've choked off rivers that used to run freely, and I'll just say there's a push-pull there. Way we have people now, we do need water. We do need to be able to store it during the summer months so that it's not gone for people during the summer. It's an option. Hydroelectricity is an option. It's an option that's fraught, but it's an option. And I do think that we can probably figure out salmon runs for going around these things. For some reason, that seems to be it's an all or nothing with dams with a lot of people, and I think there's room for discussion there. But there's not enough hydroelectricity in the West to feed the electrical demands of the West, particularly if we start going to electric cars for everything, right? Our grid is pretty crummy as it is. Our infrastructure is pretty crummy, which isn't to say don't invest in it, don't improve it, but thinking that we can just go to it, I think is surprisingly naive to hear from someone like David Attenborough, who I believe probably thinks about this stuff very deeply. And I think that his solution is pretty idealistic and childish and unworkable for most people on this planet. Geothermal, I won't speak to. There are only a few places you can do it. I mean, creating steam for electricity, that's what you want to do with geothermal. I won't speak to the scalability of it. I don't know how many sites there are in the world for it, but if you add up solar, geothermal, hydroelectric, wind power, it doesn't quite cut it. And so if that's the goal, and I think a lot of people have it as a goal, it does mean significantly reducing the lifestyle of most of the Western world. What's interesting about it is that as they're doing this, there is a they. There are people who run the world who do so for financial gain. You know, they own all these big corporations. You know, the market for smartphones and iPads is pretty much tapped in the United States and Europe. You don't have new customers to sell your products to. It's the same old customers. We're holding on to our tech as long as we can because we know it comes from horrible sources. Hopefully, if we give a shit. And so they're looking to the global South for marketplace. And I don't know how green they're going to be as they build out the global South, but we're being told in the global North that we just use too much and we're going to have to suck it up, and it's all our fault anyway. I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's human to just say, screw all you guys. But I think a lot of people are there right now, is screw all you guys. I don't know. The David Attenborough piece was interesting. I see a lot of his points. As with so many things, I see so many people bringing up really good analysis of problem. And inevitably, there's a solution offered because no one likes to hear about a problem without a solution. Yeah, well, what are you going to do about it? I hear that. The difficulty is every time I hear a big centralized solution for this stuff, um, it sounds like totalitarian dystopia to me. And I think that could be said for a lot of people, um, particularly anyone who might consider themselves middle class, working class, um, but more middle class. If you hear the propositions putting forward and you think about living it out, oh my God. And then working class people like California, they want to do, um, they want to get rid of gas powered leaf blowers and weed whackers and stuff because California. And all these uh, gardeners from uh, other countries who are trying to scrap it here are now being forced to buy lithium ion battery powered stuff that doesn't work as well as gas in order to do this. They've incurred a massive business expense. Um, and that goes for all gardeners. It's not just the Latinos. But um, all of a sudden, you're making life more difficult and more expensive for everybody. And the winners are people who own mines. The winners are people who uh, like looking at nature but don't like the pesky plebs sullying it. This is a very anti-human attitude towards most of the people in the northern part of the world. Um, and yeah, the solutions, man. I'm all for living smaller. I actually like I'm okay with the idea of my own self and family living a little bit smaller, but I want to do it on my own terms for my own reasons. And there are other people who don't want to do that. There are people who are rather rapacious, and I think some of that needs to be toned down. But I do think that um, prescribing a level of life that is acceptable for the humans you can control is a very nasty way of looking at your fellow humans. And um, I don't know. I got a really sour taste by the end of that piece by David Attenborough because it really seemed focused on uh, solutions that I find untenable, as his message of hope at the end, after his doom essay. Um, he called it his testimony, as if we're in a court, right, of public opinion right now. And his testimony, his time on the stand, he's going to say, oh, look, it all got horrible. But there's light at the end of the tunnel that's not doable, and it's all your fault. It's kind of how it came across. I'd be curious to know if you watched the piece. I'll have to add in my description the name of it and a link for it, whatever. I think it was on Netflix. Um, anyway, I'll add. This piece made me very uncomfortable because I was watching it with my family, and my stepdad really wanted to watch it, and my kid said he wanted to watch it. I read the description. I kind of knew where this thing was going to go, and I really didn't like putting that doom and gloom message in my kid's ears and eyes. Eventually, he got bored with it. He wanted to leave, which is appropriate, I think. The doom and gloom doesn't belong with your kids. That's another thing here. That my bad daddy. Um, I was talking with a family friend here a while ago, or a friend, talking with my friend a while ago, and his daughter was really down. She's early teenager. She at the time was really down about all the environmental doom gloom, this, that, the other thing, apocalypse coming, all this stuff. And I talked with her a little bit, and I'm going to have the same conversation with you right now, just for a minute. People have been talking about the end of people, I suspect, since we discovered our own mortality and wrestled with it in our minds as cavemen. I think we've been hypothesizing about what the end of all creation would be since then. It's in the earliest campfire stories. It's in every major culture. You've got a bringing things into existence story, and you've got a Ragnarok or an apocalypse or a great revelation or something like that where the end happens. And if you often there's a note of reckoning, atonement, punishment, judgment, etc. associated with this. And this David Attenborough sounded like that same campfire story to me, quite honestly. That humans were going to have a reckoning, and we were going to have to change what we were doing, and we were going to have to alter, and this and that and the other thing. Which isn't to say that I don't believe in being responsible for doing better. Not what I'm saying at all. But the flavor of this whole thing, it sounded like the end of the world in David Attenborough's Court at the Campfire. I'm curious to know what you think.